A mind without instruction can no more bear fruit than can a field, however fertile, without cultivation. Non nobis solum nati sumus. Not for ourselves alone are we born. To be content with what we possess is the greatest and most secure of riches. A nation can survive its fools, and even the ambitious. But it cannot survive treason from within. They condemn what they do not understand. Next to God we are nothing. To God we are everything. Whatever you do, do with all your might. In a republic this rule ought to be observed, that the majority should not have the predominant power. A home without books is a body without soul. The authority of those who teach is often an obstacle to those who want to learn. The beginnings of all things are small. We forget our pleasures, we remember our sufferings. I prefer tongue-tied knowledge to ignorant loquacity. If I had more time, I would have written a shorter letter. Those who do not know history will forever remain children. Man was born for two things: thinking and acting. What then is freedom? The power to live as one wishes. We should be as careful of our words as of our actions. Diseases of the soul are more dangerous and more numerous than those of the body. Man is his own worst enemy. Lat. Nihil inimicius quam sibi ipsi. Politicians are not born, they are excreted. Never was a government that was not composed of liars, malefactors, and thieves. What society does to its children, so will its children do to society. Through doubt we arrive at the truth. More is lost by indecision than wrong decision. Indecision is the thief of opportunity. It will steal you blind. Any man can make mistakes, but only an idiot persists in his error. The first duty of man is the seeking after and the investigation of truth. Gratitude is not only the greatest of virtues, but the parent of all the others. Within the character of the citizen lies the welfare of the nation. I have always been of the opinion that unpopularity earned by doing what is right is not unpopularity at all, but glory. Anyone may fairly seek his own advantage, but no one has a right to do so at another's expense. Poor is the nation that has no heroes, but poorer still is the nation that, having heroes, fails to remember and honor them. We should be careful that our benevolence does not exceed our means. Morals today are corrupted by our worship of riches. If you have a garden and a library, you have everything you need. It is not enough to acquire wisdom, it is necessary to employ it. Silence is one of the great arts of conversation. It is not by muscle, speed, or physical dexterity that great things are achieved, but by reflection, force of character, and judgment. There are two ways to resolve conflicts: through violence or through negotiation. Violence is for wild beasts, negotiation is for human beings. The greater the difficulty, the greater the glory. It is the peculiar quality of a fool to perceive the faults of others and to forget his own. The higher we are placed, the more humbly we should walk. Life without learning is death. More laws, less justice. We learn nothing from history except that we learn nothing from history. If you wish to persuade me, you must think my thoughts, feel my feelings, and speak my words. The wise are instructed by reason, average minds by experience, the stupid by necessity and the brute by instinct. When you have no basis for an argument, abuse the plaintiff. Let the welfare of the people be the ultimate law. Nothing is more unreliable than the populace, nothing more obscure than human intentions, nothing more deceptive than the whole electoral system. Friendship improves happiness and abates misery, by the doubling of our joy and the dividing of our grief. Times are bad. Children no longer obey their parents, and everyone is writing a book. To be ignorant of what occurred before you were born is to remain always a child. Virtue is its own reward. No one dances sober, unless he is insane. Nothing troubles you for which you do not yearn. Men must suffer to be wise. What nobler employment, or more valuable to the state, than that of the man who instructs the rising generation? Before beginning, plan carefully. O wretched man, wretched not just because of what you are, but also because you do not know how wretched you are. No man should so act as to make a gain out of the ignorance of another. To err is human, but to persevere in error is only the act of a fool. For surely to be wise is the most desirable thing in all the world. Extreme justice is extreme injustice. Advice is judged by results, not by intentions. The false is nothing but an imitation of the true. We were born to unite with our fellow men, and to join in community with the human race. Every evil in the bud is easily crushed. As it grows older, it becomes stronger. Cultivation to the mind is as necessary as food to the body. As laws multiply, injustice increases. Nothing is so secure as that money will not defeat it. There is no duty more obligatory than the repayment of kindness. When time and need require, we should resist with all our might, and prefer death to slavery and disgrace. There is no duty more indispensable than that of returning a kindness. When money is unreasonably coveted, it is a disease of the mind which is called avarice. It is as hard for the good to suspect evil, as it is for the bad to suspect good. Of all nature's gifts to the human race, what is sweeter to a man than his children? As the grace of men is in the mind, so the beauty of the mind is eloquence. The life of the dead is placed in the memory of the living. It is difficult to persuade mankind that the love of virtue is the love of themselves. The higher our position, the more modestly we should behave. It is exercise alone that supports the spirits, and keeps the mind in vigor. There are more men ennobled by study than by nature. No well-informed person has declared a change of opinion to be inconstancy. It is our own evil thoughts which madden us. Time obliterates the fictions of opinion and confirms the decisions of nature. Thou shouldst eat to live, not live to eat. Lat. Esse opertet ut vivas, non vivere ut idas. By doubting we come at truth. It is the nature of every person to err, but only the fool perseveres in error. The life given us, by nature is short, but the memory of a well-spent life is eternal. You will be as much value to others as you have been to yourself. If our lives are endangered by plots or violence or armed robbers or enemies, any and every method of protecting ourselves is morally right. I prefer the most unfair peace to the most righteous war. Please go on, make your threats. I don't like to submit to mere implication. If we are not ashamed to think it, we should not be ashamed to say it. The enemy is within the gates. It is with our own luxury, our own folly, our own criminality that we have to contend. Friends, though absent, are still present. Too much liberty leads both men and nations to slavery. Most happy is he who is entirely self-reliant, and who centers all his requirements in himself alone. Probability is the very guide of life. Sound conviction should influence us rather than public opinion. Long life is denied us, therefore let us do something to show that we have lived. Your enemies can kill you, but only your friends can hurt you. The thirst of desire is never filled, nor fully satisfied. Wisdom often exists under a shabby coat. In all matters, before beginning, a diligent preparation should be made. He is rich who wishes no more than he has. A man's own manner and character is what most becomes him. To give counsel, as well as to take it, is a feature of true friendship. Hatreds not vowed and concealed are to be feared more than those openly declared. If we lose affection and kindliness from our life, we lose all that gives it charm. Fortune, not wisdom, rules lives. The purpose of education is to free the student from the tyranny of the present. I prefer the wisdom of the uneducated to the folly of the loquacious. What is dishonorably got, is dishonorably squandered. A thankful heart is not only the greatest virtue but the parent of all the other virtues. Knowledge which is divorced from justice may be called cunning rather than wisdom. What is dignity without honesty? A man of courage is also full of faith. Our minds possess by nature an insatiable desire to know the truth. What is permissible is not always honorable. A tear dries quickly when it is shed for troubles of others. No wise man ever thought that a traitor should be trusted. Trust no one unless you have eaten much salt with him. I hear Socrates saying that the best seasoning for food is hunger, for drink, thirst. The diligent farmer plants trees, of which he himself will never see the fruit. The recovery of freedom is so splendid a thing that we must not shun even death when seeking to recover it. Peace is liberty and tranquility. History is indeed the witness of the times, the light of truth. He has no worse enemy than himself. The wise man knows nothing if he cannot benefit from his wisdom. Wisdom is not only to be acquired, but also to be utilized. I remember the very thing that I do not wish to. I cannot forget the things I wish to forget. Wisdom is not only to be acquired, but enjoyed. Vivere est cogitare. To think is to live. The pursuit, even of the best things, ought to be calm and tranquil. Men do not realize how great an income thrift is. The countenance is the portrait of the soul, and the eyes mark its intentions. I am never less alone than when alone. Justice consists in doing no injury to men, decency in giving them no offense. You must therefore love me, myself, and not my circumstances, if we are to be real friends. There are no true friends in politics. Probabilities direct the conduct of the wise men. Our generosity never should exceed our abilities. Dum spiro, spiro, as long as I breathe, I hope. It is the character of a brave and resolute man not to be ruffled by adversity and not to desert his post. Everything is alive. Everything is interconnected. Let your desires be ruled by reason. The most desirable thing in life after health and modest means is leisure with dignity. Not only is there an art in knowing a thing, but also a certain art in teaching it. Grief is not in the nature of things, but in opinion. The house should derive dignity from the master, not the master from the house. Brevity is a great charm of eloquence. We are obliged to respect, defend, and maintain the common bonds of union and fellowship that exist among all members of the human race. No one has the right to be sorry for himself for a misfortune that strikes everyone. Every man should bear his own grievances rather than detract from the comforts of another. It is foolish to tear one's hair in grief, as though sorrow would be made less by baldness. There are gems of thought that are ageless and eternal. Be a pattern to others and then all will go well. So near is falsehood to truth that a wise man would do well not to trust himself on the narrow edge. Nature has planted in our minds an insatiable longing to see the truth. There is nothing which God cannot do. Lat. Nihil est quod Deus efficere non possit. Time is the herald of truth. All great men are partially inspired. It is better to receive than to do injury. This is a proof of a well-trained mind, to rejoice in what is good and to grieve at the opposite. Men, in whatever anxiety they may be, if they are men, sometimes indulge in relaxation. This excessive license, which the anarchists think is the only true freedom, provides the stock, as it were, from which a tyrant grows. No man can be brave who thinks pain the greatest evil, nor temperate, who considers pleasure the highest good. Freedom is participation in power. Rashness belongs to youth, prudence to old age. I shall always consider the best guesser the best prophet. It is fortune, not wisdom, that rules man's life. No one can speak well, unless he thoroughly understands his subject. If the truth were self-evident, eloquence would be unnecessary. We study history not to be clever in another time, but to be wise always. The mere act of believing that some wrongful course of action constitutes an advantage is pernicious. Genius is fostered by industry. Ability without honor is useless. The multitude of fools is a protection to the wise. It is not only arrogant, but it is profligate, for a man to disregard the world's opinion of himself. Persistence in a single view has never been regarded as a merit in political leaders. To live long, live slowly. Any man can make a mistake, only a fool keeps making the same one. The more virtuous any man is, the less easily does he suspect others to be vicious. Would that I could discover truth as easily as I can uncover falsehood. There never was a great soul that did not have some divine inspiration. Hatred is a settled anger. He who suffers, remembers. After victory, you have more enemies. History is the witness that testifies to the passing of time. Whatever is graceful is virtuous, and whatever is virtuous is graceful. The whole life of a philosopher is the meditation of his death. Any man may make a mistake, none but a fool will stick to it. Second thoughts are best, as the proverb says. There is no castle so strong that it cannot be overthrown by money. Orators are most vehement when they have the weakest cause, as men get on horseback when they cannot walk. There is no place more delightful than home. Let a man practice the profession which he best knows. I am not ashamed to confess that I am ignorant of what I do not know. All pain is either severe or slight. If slight, it is easily endured; if severe, it will without doubt be brief. Study carefully the character of the one you recommend, lest their misconduct bring you shame. Freedom is a man's natural power of doing what he pleases, so far as he is not prevented by force or law. Nature herself makes the wise man rich. Courage is virtue which champions the cause of right. It is difficult to tell how much men's minds are conciliated by a kind manner and gentle speech. While the sick man has life, there is hope. It is difficult to set bounds to the price unless you first set bounds to the wish. I never admire another's fortune so much that I became dissatisfied with my own. I do not understand what the man who is happy wants in order to be happier. The man who commands efficiently must have obeyed others in the past, and the man who obeys dutifully is worthy of someday being a commander. We ought to regard amiability as the quality of woman, dignity that of man. Leisure consists in all those virtuous activities by which a man grows morally, intellectually, and spiritually. It is that which makes a life worth living. The more laws, the less justice. The administration of government, like a guardianship, ought to be directed to the good of those who confer, not of those who receive the trust. Learning is a kind of natural food for the mind. For there is assuredly nothing dearer to a man than wisdom, and though age takes away all else, it undoubtedly brings us that. The intellect engages us in the pursuit of truth. The passions impel us to action. A thankful heart is the greatest virtue. The world has not yet learned the riches of frugality. Never go to excess, but let moderation be your guide. The strictest law often causes the most serious wrong. Secret enmities are more to be feared than open ones. Nature has granted the use of life like a loan, without fixing any day for repayment. Memory is the treasury and guardian of all things. Do not hold the delusion that your advancement is accomplished by crushing others. Reason should direct, and appetite obey. Nobody can give you wiser advice than yourself. You will never err if you listen to your own suggestions. Friendship is the only thing in the world concerning the usefulness of which all mankind are agreed. The rabble estimate few things according to their real value, most things according to their prejudices. The diseases of the mind are more and more destructive than those of the body. Lat. Morbi perniciors pluresc animi quam corporis. Glory follows virtue as if it were its shadow. Exercise and temperance can preserve something of our early strength even in old age. There is no grief which time does not lessen and soften. Rightly defined philosophy is simply the love of wisdom. He does not seem to me to be a freeman who does not sometimes do nothing. To add a library to a house is to give that house a soul. Judge not by the number, but by the weight. Through ignorance of what is good and what is bad, the life of man is greatly perplexed. Nothing is more noble, nothing more venerable than fidelity. Faithfulness and truth are the most sacred excellences and endowments of the human mind. To stumble twice against the same stone is a proverbial disgrace. Slowly and imperceptibly old age comes creeping on. A person who is wise does nothing against their will, nothing with sighing or under coercion. Crimes are not to be measured by the issue of events, but by the bad intentions of men. Friends are proved by adversity. In anger nothing right nor judicious can be done. Every word that is unnecessary only pours over the side of a brimming mind. Men of different tastes have different pursuits. The harvest of old age is the recollection and abundance of blessing previously secured. The memory of past troubles is pleasant. Lat. Jucunda memoria est praeteritorum malorum. History is the teacher of life. While there's life, there's hope. For what is there more hideous than avarice, more brutal than lust, more contemptible than cowardice, more base than stupidity and folly? An agreement of rash men, a conspiracy. It shows a weak mind not to bear prosperity as well as adversity with moderation. Promises are not to be kept, if the keeping of them is to prove harmful to those to whom you have made them. I criticize by creation, not by finding fault. Nothing is so unbelievable that oratory cannot make it acceptable. Sweet is the recollection of difficulties overcome. Let the punishment be proportionate to the offense. Brevity is the best recommendation of speech, whether in a senator or an orator. In prosperity let us most carefully avoid pride, disdain, and arrogance. Freedom suppressed and again regained bites with keener fangs than freedom never endangered. It is virtue itself that produces and sustains friendship, not without virtue can friendship by any possibility exist. It might be pardonable to refuse to defend some men, but to defend them negligently is nothing short of criminal. Fortune is not only blind herself, but blinds the people she has embraced. Whatever befalls in accordance with nature should be accounted good. An ancient custom obtains force of nature. To teach is a necessity, to please is a sweetness, to persuade is a victory. A bachelor's bed is the most pleasant. Justice extorts no reward, no kind of price, she is sought, therefore, for her own sake. Kindness is produced by kindness. No deceit is so veiled as that which lies concealed behind the semblance of courtesy. The master sometimes serves, and the servant sometimes is master. There is sufficient reward in the mere consciousness of a good action. Men ought to be most annoyed by the sufferings which come from their own faults. There is no mortal whom pain and disease do not reach. The absolute good is not a matter of opinion but of nature. Vicious habits are so odious and degrading that they transform the individual who practices them into an incarnate demon. Prosperity demands of us more prudence and moderation than adversity. Nor am I ashamed, as some are, to confess my ignorance of those matters with which I am unacquainted. You may never be less alone than when you are alone. The judgment of posterity is truer, because it is free from envy and malevolence. As the scale of the balance must give way to the weight that presses it down, so the mind must of necessity yield to demonstration. The whole of virtue consists in its practice. It is not enough merely possess virtue, as if it were an art, it should be practiced. Laws are silent in time of war. It was fear that was then making you a good citizen, which is never a lasting teacher of duty. Virtue and decency are so nearly related that it is difficult to separate them from each other but in our imagination. An unjust peace is better than a just war. We all are imbued with the love of praise. The foundations of justice are that on one shall suffer wrong, then that the public good be promoted. The sinews of war are infinite money. He who acknowledges a kindness has it still, and he who has a grateful sense of it has requited it. This is our special duty, that if anyone specially needs our help, we should give him such help to the utmost of our power. We are bound by the law, so that we may be free. All places are filled with fools. Lat. Stultorum plenia sunt omnia. The gods attend to great matters, they neglect small ones. That last day does not bring extinction to us, but change of place. It is pleasant to recall past troubles. Friendship is infinitely better than kindness. No one is so old that he does not think he could live another year. Fear is not a lasting teacher of duty. A happy life consists in tranquility of mind. Superstition is an unreasoning fear of God. Prudence is the knowledge of things to be sought, and those to be shunned. O tempora! O mores! O what times are these! What morals! Politeness and an affable address are our best introduction. If only every man would make proper use of his strength and do his utmost, he need never regret his limited ability. Not to know what happened before means to remain forever a child. Nothing is more noble, nothing more venerable than fidelity. The good of the people is the greatest law. Quo usque tandem abutera, Catalina, patientia nostra. In heaven's name, Catalan, how long will you abuse our patience? Strict law is often great injustice. In men of the highest character and noblest genius there is to be found an insatiable desire for honor, command, power, and glory. What one has, one ought to use, and whatever he does he should do with all his might. Never injure a friend, even in jest. It is besides necessary that whoever is brave should be a man of great soul. An old man with something of the youth in him may feel young in mind and heart only. Generosity should never exceed ability. The face is a picture of the mind with the eyes as its interpreter. Laws are inoperative in war. Friendship was given by nature to be an assistant to virtue, not a companion in vice. Thus in the beginning the world was so made that certain signs come before certain events. The works of nature must all be accounted good. How much in love with himself, and that too without a rival. In friendship we find nothing false or insincere, everything is straightforward, and springs from the heart. The first bond of society is marriage. We are not born, we do not live for ourselves alone. Our country, our friends, have a share in us. No wise man has called a change of opinion inconstancy. He who has a garden and a library wants for nothing. For even if the allotted space of life be short, it is long enough in which to live honorably and well. The avarice of the old, it's absurd to increase one's luggage as one nears the journey's end. The spirit is the true self. The spirit, the will to win, and the will to excel are the things that endure. Loyalty is what we seek in friendship. As a philosopher, I have a right to ask for a rational explanation of religious faith. It is the act of a bad man to deceive by falsehood. Learning mocketh young men temperate, is the comfort of old age, standing for wealth with poverty, and serving as an ornament to riches. All action is of the mind, and the mirror of the mind is the face, its index the eyes. He who has once deviated from the truth usually commits perjury with as little scruple as he would tell a lie. No man was ever great without divine inspiration. Lat. Nemo vir magnus aliquo afflata divino unquam fiat. Falsehoods border on truths. Tomorrow will give us something to think about. Nothing is more praiseworthy, nothing more suited to a great and illustrious man than placability and a merciful disposition. The great theater for virtue is conscience. No one was ever great without some portion of divine inspiration. Quacks pretend to cure other men's disorders, but fail to find a remedy for their own. Hunger is the best sauce. All soils are not fertile. Liberty consists in the power of doing that which is permitted by the law. Wars are to be undertaken in order that it may be possible to live in peace without molestation. Borrowing from Peter to pay Paul. The safety of the people shall be the highest law. An army abroad is of little use unless there are prudent counsels at home. Lat. Parvi enim sunt foris arma, nisi est consilium domi. Nothing is so great an adversary to those who make it their business to please as expectation. Ill-gotten gains will be ill spent. As in the case of wines that improve with age, the oldest friendships ought to be the most delightful. We cannot employ the mind to advantage when we are filled with excessive food and drink. Favors out of place I regard as positive injuries. Rather leave the crime of the guilty unpunished than condemn the innocent. Things perfected by nature are better than those finished by art. It shows a brave and resolute spirit not to be agitated in exciting circumstances. What is dishonestly got vanishes in profligacy. True glory strikes root, and even extends itself. All false pretensions fall as do flowers, nor can any feigned thing be lasting.